Okay, welcome to Coaching with Mendy. I would like to introduce today Dr. Stuart Chesner, a clinical psychologist for many, many years, and he has a lot to share and to offer. Welcome, Dr. Chesner.
Hello, I'm very, very happy to be here.
Oh, so am I. So I know you are a clinical psychologist for many years, working in many different aspects, working, I think, mainly with adults, but I think you also made some sort of book, which I've read and saw that also as far as parenting. And I'd like to know, how do you work? Do you work with children currently as well in parenting, or is it more with adults that you're teaching parents how to parent? And then I know you're dealing with all different types of trauma. So if you can tell us a little bit more what you do and how you work, and I would like to talk to you about whatever you made that book on parenting, which is I think parenting through Torah. You are a Talmud of the Rav, so it definitely comes together here in as a clinical psychologist, and being a Talmud of Rav Soloveitchik is very meaningful.
Yeah, look, yes, I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm trained both as an adult and family and child psychologist. Um, and most of my work that I do today, I live here in Israel now. I grew up in Borough Park, but I live here in Eretz Yisrael, and most of the work that I do today is actually I work mostly with adults, kind of helping adults get on and guide both themselves and the next generation of people. And so parenting is a really important aspect of that. A couple years ago, I wrote a book called Kosher ADHD, which was about how to work with the child or adult, how ADHD affects attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, how that affects relationships with between parents and adults, between parents and each other, within a couple, how it, as a parent. Now, this book that I'm in the middle of, I'm finishing it up now, really, is a book upon where I write about I call it developmentally attuned parenting. And it's really creating how to create a developmentally attuned Torah environment. And it basically is about how we can live in harmony with our Torah values and ideals and how we can bring them into parenting as opposed to view parenting as something outside of our Torah values. It's really to be viewed as a deep expression of our Torah values. So that's what I'm trying to do with this latest book that I hope will be out very soon.
Wow, that sounds exciting. So
Yes.
how would you add? You're saying that, as a you obviously it sounds like you're added something from the Torah in addition to being a clinical psychologist in the parenting, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, I feel that, I mean, I've seen over the past 35 years, uh, thousands of families, thousands of parents of all different races, religions on different continents. And what I see, a common denominator, every human being who's a parent, parents are parenting well when their parenting reflects their core values. When your parenting is separate from your core values and it becomes, if I put it in just simple terms, when washing the dishes just becomes washing the dishes and you lose sight that this is reflective of something greater, then it's very, very hard to wash the dishes and to feel you're doing something meaningful, useful. But when we're able to kind of get into the moment very, very deeply, and, in the book, I speak a lot about how we do that. And we realize that what is the only things in life that are worth spending energy on and getting upset about are things that are reflective of our basic values, those things that are most important to us. And things that aren't really important to us, it's an unfortunate waste of time and energy that we spend so much of our days and nights worrying about them. And in developmentally attuned Torah environment, when we create that by being developmentally attuned parents, when we do that, we are able to spend, direct our energy towards what our core values are. And if our core values are living as Torah Jews, then the more Torah Judaism will be reflected in me as a parent, in my role as a father, my role as a mother, then the more parenting is going to be a significant issue in my life. And I'm going to benefit, and my children are going to benefit. But if I lose that connection, then I can't go on. And so really the focus of the book on is on how do I develop a connection, and how do I maintain this connection in, in the all of the dirty work of being a parent. How can I maintain? Is it possible? I really believe it is. I believe we must have that connection. The more we're able to have that connection, the better parents we'll all be able to be.
What and that goes for everyone, not necessarily ADHD. That goes for every type of parent. And
Yes, yeah, this is for all children and for all parents. I think, today kids or parents who are neurodiverse, who are ADHD, ASD, or just quirky, if you will, just a little bit outside of the box. There are particular challenges, but the principles are the same for all parents who want, who are feeling frustrated, who are feeling that parenting is something that is a drag, is not something that is lifting them up, but is pulling them down. I think that we can not make it, some fanciful activity, but make it much more meaningful. And I think only things that are meaningful will withstand the test of time.
right. No, actually, when a young couple gets married, they barely figured out how to be married, and then they're going into having children. What you mentioned Torah, but how do they really know what is parenting all about? I don't think there's any courses for that or any
No,
teachings for that. So how do we go about, most of the parents, especially the new parents, and even parents, because children become older and they become, teens, and there's different stages in life, and then it fires back later on. How do we? What is your advice for parents to go about parenting?
look, first thing I think, Mendy, you said something here which is very important. I mean, it's kind of incredible when you just stop to think about it a second. I mean, to drive a car, you need a license. To operate any piece of machinery, you need a license. To be a parent, which is undoubtedly the most significant task in terms of for society, because you're really shaping, building, you're creating another human being who then becomes part of this world. But there's no requirements. Now, I think that poor answer that people give is, well, parenting is not something you can learn from a book, or you can't just give a course and take a test, and, that's true to a certain extent. But I believe that many of the fundamental issues of parenting are learned. They're things which, if the more they become part of your conscious mind, the better you will be at doing them. The more that you just rely on, let's call it intuition, then, maybe you'll be good, maybe you'll be bad, maybe Monday you'll be good, maybe Tuesday you'll be bad, maybe if you have a good night's sleep, you'll be good. Everything is up for grabs. It's all in the wind. And I think it's really a very, very sad reflection. I think there might be a country or two in the world where today people have to go through some kind of mandatory parenting classes. Now, I don't believe that that guarantees anything, but I do believe that if you really work on parenting. And I think for us as Jews, that we say so clearly, the Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, that we really believe we're people of the book. We believe in studying. We say that learning is the greatest mitzvah. And so here, if we're able to learn about being a parent, it doesn't mean you're going to become the perfect parent, because the perfect parent doesn't exist in this world. I mean, we all believe that the perfect parent is up above. He is our perfect parent, Avinu b'Shabashamayim. But I can become, if I know in this world, Mashehu Rachum, Afatate Rachum, Mashehu Chanun, Afatate Chanun. If that's the perspective, so I can become more and more like him. So I think what we really are trying to do here is taking something which is really unconscious. I mean, the Torah also says, "You have to kamocha," right? Love your fellow
Obvious.
and as yourself. Okay, so and most people feel, oh yeah, I know that. Well, it's probably
It's not about knowing, actually. It's about first being.
being able to be a person that can be a loving person, that can love someone else, that can give their love over. And I think it's something that we have given to, that the Jewish people have given to the world, saying, listen, knowledge is to take into behavior and is to change the reality of behavior. And we really believe in the Jewish home, that there's something about the Jewish home which is special. So, what I think we need to try and do is try to look at ourselves in a, if you will, more scientific way, and take that scientific way and say, look how these things that modern science teaches us about living, look how we can use them to become better parents. I mean, this is, I think, what the Torah demands that we do, that we don't just close ourselves off, but that we take this in and we can become better parents. And what I'm saying is that I think if we bring things to our consciousness and we start thinking about them, it will affect, I know it affects our ability to do them. And like this, we all become better parents. So I think that's what people have to learn. This is something which, I compare it to if I would start playing basketball today for 10 hours a day, I would never be as good a player as Michael Jordan, and the younger people don't even know who Michael Jordan. They hear his name because he was a great basketball player. So there's like LeBron James today, maybe a great basketball. They were younger players, but I can't go any younger than that. But LeBron James is a great basketball. I'll never become as good as LeBron James, but Simcha Chesner will become better than Simcha Chesner is today. I'll be a better basketball player. So I think with parenting, lahavdil,
So
everybody can become better than they are
beautiful.
today.
Very well said. I'm just going to take it a step. What I'm hearing in the words, which is probably what's coming out from these words, is that part of parenting is parenting yourself first. And if you're not
I,
going to parent yourself and working on yourself, you're not going to be there for your child. And you're not going to be there for your spouse.
I think that that's the most important point. Parents, I mean, for decades, people come into me, how can I help my child? That's all, good people. How
So
can I help?
really, so really, childhood parenting starts even before the child is born, and they really need to prepare for that and
You
notice
need
being conscious.
and it means helping yourself. It
That's
means
it.
if you're not going to help yourself, you can't be a better parent. Very
Right.
simply. Many, many very good people feel, oh, it's selfish. I'm not doing this for myself. I'm not going to take time for myself. For my kids, I'll do it. And then you understand, listen, the greatest thing you can do for your kid is to invest in yourself. This is for all kinds of what we call the helping professions today, whether all different kinds of therapy. When a person invests in themselves, they are making a giant investment in their children. And when you don't invest in yourself, eh, you can have a wonderful therapist, a magical helper, the smartest rabbi. He won't be able to help you because you're not doing it yourself. You can't, there was a writer, I think it was George Bernard Shaw. No, it wasn't. It was Ralph Waldo Emerson, a different writer. He said, "What you do speaks so loudly, I cannot hear a word that you're saying."
Yeah.
In other words, our actions and who we are so important that we can give a million musser schmoozes and we can tell the kid you should be this and you should be this. It's worthless if I'm not acting in a way that if I'm not living those values that I'm trying to teach over. And that's
Meaning
what
to
we
say
got to try to
a person supposed to feel and be authentic and knowing where they at.
without that, and the kids will be the first one to tell you when you're being a phony or when
Right.
dad, you never go to shul, you sleep the minyan all the time. I mean, what are you telling me to go to shul for? Whatever it is. Oh, mom, I hear you curse when you get angry. Don't tell me that about how.
Right.
Well, I hear you talking with your friends about the neighbor down the block. Don't tell me not to speak lashon hara. Yes, very, very, very hard. And it's very important to learn, invest in yourself. And that's part of this book is investing in yourself is essential if you love your children.
And that goes for all nationalities. It's not necessary, meaning investing in yourself and finding. Now, you were also mentioning as far as ADHD. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, how does the ADHD couple, if one is ADHD, how does that work? And like from your experience, how
Yeah.
that.
Look, first, today everyone has already heard about ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I mean, tremendous amount of people either have been given a formal diagnosis, some people have diagnosed themselves. Basic idea is you're speaking of a person who is uh, um, hyperactive, impulsive, who doesn't like to delay gratification, wants things now, needs things to be happening at a quick pace, needs to get a lot of gratification. Now, I think of in the Torah, I think if you want to see the first ADHD person, I view the first ADHD person turned out to be unfortunately Esav. Esav was ADHD. Vayochal, vayesht, vayokom, vayelach, vayivez, Esav et habechora. You'll see five verbs there. Five, vayochal, vayesh, vayokom, vayelech, vayivez. Five verbs. In the rest of the Tanakh, there is not one other case of five verbs in consecutive order. And it's clear that the Torah is teaching us that Esav is an impulsive guy. He's a very, very impulsive guy. Now, I
What
don't,
what what does someone do in order not to be impulsive?
well, I would say more than that. How can we take the Esav character? I think we know somebody else from the Tanakh that was also sort of impulsive. And, that was kind of like, that was David HaMelech. David HaMelech, we see the first time that Shmuel Hanavi sees David. He says the Torah says, the Tanakh says, Vayarehu v'hinei admoni. He sees him, and behold, he's an admoni. Now, there's only an admoni, which it's hard to translate what an admoni is, a fiery redhead, let's say, admoni. There was something reddish. He was, whatever. We're not sure. Some people, you see, say David Hamelech had red hair. Some people say he had red skin, whatever. But it was the only other person in the whole Torah that's ever called admoni is Esav. And the Midrash on that pasuk, it says that when David Hamelech, when Shmuel Hanavi sees David Hamelech for the first time, he basically has a panic attack, and he says, "Hu rotzeach, hu rotzeach, hu admoni, hu Esav." He's Esav. It's the same thing. What are you going to do? And Hashem says, Moshchehu Kizehu, Moshchehu, and he's the one, anoint him, he's the king. And then you look at David HaMelech and look what he did with this impulsivity. One, he was crazy enough to fight Goliath. Who would fight Goliath except for him? Two, we see he loved music and he wrote songs and he wrote Tehillim, and he was a king, he was a warrior, and he was a Talmud Chacham. You saw all of these multiple characteristics. He's not your typical personality. So I think that, again, that's kind of at the heart. That's a perfect example of what the developmentally attuned parenting is, because it means being able to see that we all have specific characteristics, temperament, behavior, and either we can go, oh, it's terrible, or you say, how can I take this boy, this girl, my partner, and how can I see the value in this? And David HaMelech was able to take these raw characteristics and turn them, the psychological words, sublimate them in the direction of positive behavior. When you're able to do that, you accomplish great things. If, on the other hand, you're always just trying to fix the child, you don't be that way. Don't be that way. No, no, no. You never fix them because you don't get that every child, I think, Pashut Pshat of Chanoch Lenar Al Pidarko, it means you have to be aware of a child's inborn predisposition. And if you try to educate each of them the same way, all of your children the same way, you're going to end up in big trouble. It doesn't work. Every child needs to. It's true. Most kids, we have, Baruch Hashem, there are a lot of yeshivas and there's a lot of places where it works. But if you find that your Shabbos table is turning into a house of horrors, if you find that things that are supposed to be the most beautiful times for you turn into nightmares, you really need to think, what is happening here? Why is there a clash between my expectations and what my children are doing? And so, again, the ADHD child presents a very, very strong conflict here. But every child, unless parents are looking and seeing what their kids can do, not every kid maybe is going to be able to dive in for half an hour with great kavanah. But maybe that kid, he can be the one who sets up the shul, who's the gabbai, who calls people up, who you work on getting him to do things. It's fine. Maybe your child can, again, he can't sit in shul for a long time, but maybe he can say Kriyat Shema with kavanah for the couple minutes that it takes to say that, or even the couple seconds. And if he says Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and he does that, oh, then that's good enough. And then you let him free and you just give him a lot of praise for that. It's very, very hard for parents to do because parents tend to want their kid to be just like everybody else. This is against the Torah. It's against the Torah. Nobody is supposed to be like anybody else. If we were supposed to be like anybody else, then we wouldn't have to be. But right, the world couldn't exist without each and every one of us, apparently. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows this, and as parents, that's what we're supposed to know, that the world could not exist without your child. So you need to help your child be all that he can be, and that whether he's ADHD, ASD, totally normal, whatever he is, whatever you want to call him, it doesn't make a difference. We have to see how he comes into the Torah universe and how we take who he is and let him find, like David HaMelech, find the way to use that in the Torah universe as a positive actions.
Okay. So positivity is the name of the game in parenting.
100%.
So,
I think, again, it was positivity. I think being able to realize that it's you. What I really think the first step for everybody in becoming a developmentally attuned parent, a Torah parent, what you need to do, first of all, I say there are 3 steps. It's kind of simple, right? Just 3 steps. It's very, very hard. It's very, very hard, but it is just 3 steps. You have to do just 3 things to be a developmentally attuned Torah parent. One, the first step, I call it wonder and awe. I do this mostly in Israel, so I have it in Hebrew, so I'm translating in my head now. Hit pa'alut is the word I use. Hit pa'alut. Lit pa'el means to look at things with wonder and awe. That's the first step. And we've been talking about that till now. How do you look at your child? Do you look at him as that miserable kid? He doesn't sit long enough and he's always talking back to me. Or do I look at him in a way I just wonder? It's with your child and it's everything about life. This is why parents, you have to work on yourselves first. Your first thing you have to do is, wow, there is wonder. I did for many, many years, I led parenting classes for parents of challenging children. And I would always start the class. I would ask the parents, I'd like everyone to go around and tell me something positive about your child. And I had to stop doing it because people could not answer.
Um,
They could not. And it was really amazing. I'm talking about good. These are very good parents. To come to a parenting class, you have to be way above average. So these are very, very good parents. They couldn't do it, though, because people were feeling so negative and beaten down that they could not see anything good in their child. And the ability to just notice is so important. How can you start noticing a child? You have to start working on developing this trait within yourself that you just
that,
start.
that that sounds that's exactly, yeah, that's what I was hearing in your words and thinking about it. That you have to work on yourself. And when they want to parent children, they have to know that it's about the child, not about them. Let's say, oh, the child is doing, oh, it's not the same as me. It's not like you said before. And that's where a lot of parents make the thing, oh, I'm going to be shamed. How am I going to be facing this, facing the community? It's not my child. I'm feeling like a failure. You're trying your best and you're doing the best you can, and whatever comes out, right? That's the
That is that, just those words that you just said in those 30 seconds, it's like, kol Torah kula. It's like so hard for people not to for people to do, because you're right. The loss of boundaries between the child and myself, and parents internalizing the child and taking all the responsibility and then feeling the shame and guilt. Why? Because it's reflecting on them. Oh, you're not a good parent. Just like the example I said earlier, if your son isn't sitting next to you in shul for the same amount of time as your neighbor's son is, oh, because you're letting him run around outside during that time, you may feel that you're a bad parent. He may think, ha ha ha, ha. But you have to know in your heart, if you're letting him run around outside and not be in the shul during that time, because you know that that is healthy for his neshama, then that's what you have to do. And if you don't do that, you're killing your child. Just what you said, you are blurring the boundaries between what society says is right and what you as his parent know is right. And I know the schools are such a problem because yes, the schools have it harder than the parents do. The schools have 20 kids in a class, okay, 30 kids in a class. Here in Israel, even more. But it's like the schools have a more difficult issue. And we have to start with you. A lot of parents that I see that right away blaming the schools also. We can criticize. You're not wrong for not for criticizing, but we have to realize we're trying to do something different. It's hard. People like for things to go together. It becomes easier when everything goes together. It's very, very hard. But I assume that everybody who is listening to this podcast loves that child more than anything else in the world. And that love is the greatest strength you have to find the ability to make changes in yourself. And here I'm saying the first thing you need to change in yourself, you have to start becoming mitpa'el, lihitpa'el, to be able to experience wonder and awe at just everything that is happening to you. And I'm not saying to turn into some sort of freak and becoming, no, but it just means, in simple terms, instead of just taking everything good for granted, I mean, what we're doing now is amazing. For example, I'm sitting here in Male Adumim. You're sitting in Borough Park. Well, you got the whole world in back of you, and I see that, the whole universe. But and we're carrying on a conversation. I mean, even 20 years ago, I couldn't imagine this. 10 years ago, I couldn't imagine it. It existed already. I just couldn't imagine it yet. I didn't know about it. When Corona occurred, that I learned that, oh, this is readily accessible technology.
How
So,
does question now? This is probably a question again, but from your experience, when do you send someone for medication in ADHD? Does that play a role over here?
listen, I think one thing that we can say for sure today, medication often helps a person be less impulsive, helps a person stop, look, and listen better. Okay? It helps, but it is not a cure by itself for anything. It helps, but it doesn't cure. The brains, I say that thank God we, at the current time, cannot change the brains of neurodiverse people. We can't change their brains, whether he's ADHD, ASD, or whatever. We can't change the brains, but one of the things that medication can do when it works is it helps you, or it helps the child or the adult or whoever. It helps you perform the necessary actions to live a more value-based life, live a more Torah-based life. Think about how this moment is a chance for you and I to um, actualize Torah values if we can do it right. And the first step, I'm saying this, wonder and awe. So I can have wonder and awe at this technology, or I can just take it for granted. And I can say, yeah, it's not good enough. I wish the screen was clearer. I wish it was bigger. I wish it was three-dimensional. All those things I'm sure will be in the near future. But I'm sure in the near future it'll also be, you'll be able, well, I'll be able to like beam me up, Scotty, like they used to do on Star Trek, and I'll be able just to be in New York, or well, everything is possible. That we see, but to be able to wonder and imagine is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And when a person stops doing that, they're basically stopping to live as a human being. And so it means you're just living the physical here and now presence. You're not seeing possibilities. And when you don't see possibilities, you are in really very, very limited what you're able to do. So to see the potential in every situation, to have a if you will, a God sighting, right? And I think what the medication in cases like ADHD does, it allows you to slow down and think, stop, look, and listen better. But you're not going to know to do that unless you're getting guided in that way as well. So if you just give it the medication, you know, is he
Right.
doing better at school, worse in school? I don't know. Is
Does
he?
it, how much do you know? Would you say everybody in ADHD needs medication, or what percentage would you say that should take or that helps them?
I think. Look, today we know that a lot of people take medication, and a lot of people it helps, and a lot of people take it, and some people it doesn't help. We don't know why it doesn't help. some people.
Right.
But I can say for a fact, after working again, over 3 decades, I've been working with people like this. Medication is never the full answer.
Right. That we
And
know.
it's cheap and easy and lazy. So if you're not into self-improvement at all, if you're not into self-growth, if you believe that you're just like a piece of clay and you can't change and what is, and your situation is hopeless, then the medication is not going to help. I can tell you now, take all the medication in the world, it won't help.
Will help.
You have to have
Right. Now,
the,
you mentioned there's three steps, wonder and awe. What is the third step?
well, wondering is the first step.
It's the
The
first step.
The second step is, in Hebrew, I call it hitmaskerut. Hitmaskerut, which in English I just say self-contraction. You have to contract yourself. And what this means for parenting is setting limits,
Boundaries.
boundaries. In other words, we need boundaries. The first thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does when he creates the universe, we see the universe is tov avohu, and then we see vayerev, vayiboker, yom echad, vayerev, and we see vayar Hashem ki tov. That he sees. What does it mean? It means when there's order, this is good. It's God's plan. I think it's very interesting, by the way, if you look at all of the creation and everything that's created, after everything that's created every day, if everything, Vayar Kitov, except when Adam is created. When Adam is created, there's no thing there. It says Vayar Kitov. And, one would say that when God creates the mechanistic universe, the universe that goes according to the laws of physics, that's kitov, because we know it's going to follow the ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the will of God. But when human being given free choice, well,
Yeah,
he
choice.
can't say kitov. A few psukim later, it says Vayar. Et kol asher asav hinei tov me'od, and the Chazal say that this goes back to refer to Yom Shishi, the Adam as well. So it was very, very good. Yeah, it's very good. Okay, but the fact remains, we see the human being right after him. There's no kitov. Can he be good? Will he not be good? It's up to him. It's up to you. And so that's what we're trying to do when we become Torah parents. What we're trying to do is help our children be that kitov, but we realize it's not through Mussar schmoozes. It's not through that. So I said the first step is wonder and awe. The second step is self limitation, contraction, setting boundaries, limits, making order. Children and people today, they're wild. Why? They're anxious. People today have more anxiety than ever before. We would think there should be less anxiety. Why should there be less anxiety? Life is, but life is good today, supposedly. But we see an epidemic of anxiety and depression because there is no order in the world. And without order, we descend into tohu vavohu. And if your children are living a life without order, many parents today who grew up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, grew up in times when the world was in great conflict about should there be any order? Is there any hierarchy? We know for certain with parenting today, the research, I'm saying the Goyish world, I'm not giving a Torah report. The Goyish world understands that you need order. There was a psychologist called Baumrind, Judy Baumrind, and she did a major study on different types of parenting. And what she showed very, very clearly is that parents who are just very giving, permissive parenting creates very anxious children with low self-esteem. It's not the best kind of parenting. It's also not good to be a Hitler, to be a totally authoritarian parent, but it's very good to be an authoritative parent, samchuti, to have rules, to have order. And so in the second stage of parenting, which is hitmaskerut, people learn how to give how to have orders and rules that are fair. that are value-based rules. And so, people are going crazy, no surprises, no big punishments, but there are rules and there's order, and you learn how to give the rules, you know how to give consequences for the rules, and you learn how to do it in a way which isn't going to smash your child. Because we find in today's world, at least, smashing children, both physically or emotionally, doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Maybe it worked in other generations. In this generation, it doesn't. It just doesn't. So it's very important to accept that as reality. You can try to fight against it. Well, I remember, you know, even if I'm going to agree with you that it was great, yeah, if when you were a kid and when your father would take out the stick and rap you over the head, that was good for you, for your.
I want to add to this, meaning to say when you're giving boundaries and keeping the child in check and giving the authoritative, that has to be sandwiched with a lots of love. Meaning to say,
Always.
there's no love in general from parents, then you can't be an authority either. And once they notice that the child knows and feels that my parents love me, and they're going to actually be ashamed when they do something wrong when they're a teen, and which teens do their things. But once they know there's love, then comes in the authority, the authority. But if there's no love, the authority won't even stick. So that's an
Yeah.
important.
Look, you know that as well as I do, that if you don't, in this generation, for better or for worse, there is no more Yira. In this generation, there's Ava, and either we accept that as a fact of reality, just like we accept the law of gravity, or not. That then we're fighting against the law of gravity. Well, you can fight against it from here till tomorrow. There's the law of gravity. I look at that, the earth behind you there, and I say, to me, that's proof enough that the earth is round. The world is round. Some people's going to tell me it's flat. Okay, what can I think it's nuts. So, it's the same thing as saying, I'm going to just punish my child. The punishment will create a your child will be a broken vessel, a shever kli, and you won't feel good about yourself either. You might whatever you say, and all this being macho and being tough. This is how you do. Come on. None of us are like that. The world doesn't go that way anymore. If it ever did, I don't know. But today it certainly doesn't. And then the last step in parenting is the last stage, I call it hizdahut, which means identification. It means your child needs to identify with you and you with him, because ultimately we're all basar with him. In simple terms, without going into the details, simply means you got to be a role model. Like I said, if the father is sleeping and never going to Minyan and yelling at his son to go to Minyan, it will not have a good outcome. Okay. If the mother is talking Lashon Hara with her friends and the daughter hears that, it's not going to have a good outcome. Everything we do with our children, I think this is one of the great things about children, is they force us to be better people. Because unless we become better, unless we're striving to work on things, our children never do. Sometimes, over the years, I saw some very kids who came from home where their parents were tzaddikim, mamish, and the kids could not relate to them. Why? Because they never felt their parents had a Yetzer Hara. Couldn't imagine. It's not good by the time your children are teenagers, at least. It's not good for your child to think that you don't have a Yetzer Hara. It's important. You can thank God for having your Yetzer Hara and not having someone else's. But having a Yetzer Hara is part of being human. We
And
all have.
how do you relate that to children? But
I think everybody has a nefesh behemis, and
right.
the fact that you have a nefesh behemis is, in fact, the Rambam writes, don't say, "Oh, I don't want to, eat treif." Say, "I would love to eat the treif. I would love to have the cheeseburger, but what can I do? God permits me." Don't say, "Ugh, I hate it disgusts me," or the type of ice cream which isn't kosher disgusts me. No. You say you would love it, but why don't you do it? And this, you see, that's an example of teaching children self-regulation, the ability to regulate themselves and not to be impulsive right then and there. So you start teaching it. I'm always amazed when I see kids, Yiddish kids at a young age. One says to the other, oh, I can't eat that. When I have this ice, when I have this chocolate bar, no, I can't. I'm fleishig. And I think, unbelievable. We're teaching self-regulation. So many things in our tradition are teaching such important things. And when you see a child struggling with it, in today's world, again, I don't know what it was like 1,000 years ago. I don't know what it was like 500 years ago, even 100 years ago. But in today's world, when most kids are struggling with things, they're not struggling because they're Rishayim and they're trying to, no, they're struggling because they have things today. We call these things executive functions, and parents can learn what's going on. We understand better how the brain works. We understand how developmentally what's reasonable for most people at different ages. And then we got to look at our own child and see is he in the middle or is he at the end? And I have to do what's reasonable for him and also for myself. And we have identification as the third stage. And the three steps in this parenting are: one, wonder and awe; two, is limitations, is self-limitation rules, and the third one is identification. They identify with each other. When parents can work, there's like a whole teachings on each of these things. When parents learn how to do these things, then they become much, much better parents. And what I'm saying is, when I think for Jewish families, for frum families who are doing it, for people who want to live according to the Torah to do it, they can see this so easily within the words of the Torah. They see it as a kiyum in the Torah, and it's not something that the secular world is imposing upon us. We know that there's no more important mitzvah than to have children and to bring children into this world. So I hope that, some of us are able to do the job a little bit better because we're able to keep these values right in front of us and make that who we are. And so that's what I try to get across in this book.
Beautiful. What do sometimes you have adults still blaming their parents for this, that, and the other, and therefore they're like, still blaming. They're in a victim mode. What would you tell them?
Well, the first thing I think it's really, one, everyone naturally blames their parents. And the reason why it is totally natural to blame your parent is because your parent is not God. But when you're a little child, you think he is God. I don't mean that literally. I mean, parents can do everything. Parents are the smartest. Parents are the strongest. Parents know everything. That is a normal part that all of us stage of development that each of us go through. We have that childlike notion, and we tend to take that childlike notion, and it stays with us unless we do something about it. We're able to look at it with our adult mind and see it differently than we see it with our child mind. Most of the time, in 99% of the cases, even when parents are horrible towards their children, and sometimes parents do horrible things to their children, and it is fine and necessary and important that children are allowed to see that when it does happen, that sometimes parents are horrible. It's true. Um, it is very rare that I have seen a parent who's not doing the best he could, even when they've done horrible things. And when you realize that the parent is doing the best that he could do, you're able to forgive on a certain level. Doesn't mean that you want to repeat it. It doesn't mean that you want to justify what he did, but you can certainly say, look, that was the best he could do. It doesn't mean necessarily that he did not love me. I'm not saying that all parents love their children, but 99.9% of parents do. But 99% of children, we're always blaming our parents. And so part of it is looking back and getting the right perspective on it. And it's all hard work. It's hard work. I know the kind of work that you do, which is really focused on the somatic, the body. There's so many of these early experiences, they get pushed into the body. The way I understand it is because people don't want to accept the fact that their parents, so they can't even talk about it. So they can end up feeling miserable, depressed, anxious their whole lives because they can't even let this thought up. So, I think that it's very important for all of us to try and understand this.
Definitely. You're mentioning, it's probably, you said 99% of parents are good, and they try, at least they're trying the
Are
best.
trying, they're
They're
coming.
trying. There is that 1%, which is sometimes, again, it's probably you have the same experience, and I have it as well, coming into my office where you don't know what to say. For example, let's talk about incest. That is extremely very, very painful to see and to monitor, and there's no explanation to it. Cognitively, it doesn't even make sense. I'm taking it usually the way I am thinking about it always is that it's something with the previous lifetime, and there's some kind of correction, and something didn't happen. Obviously, it's not right to be happening. It's very hard because I've experienced it many times with clients, but we need to work with the client.
Yeah.
We need to work with the client, and there is healing in that client as well. Meaning to say, if the client wants to be accept the therapy and accept and not going into victim mode, and where I see somatic work actually is very, very helpful for that type of work. And I'm not just seeing it from my experience where, and I will never tell them to, I always tell them, don't stay stuck. Doesn't mean that you need to become now buddies or friends with your parents. They did something wrong. There's definitely something wrong. And sometimes if it's disrupting your life, even as a Torah guidance and Torah Jew, which I already discussed this with rabbis before, no, you're not supposed to have any connection with your parents if it destroys your life. And that's a Torah thing. It's not a clinical thing. We're not we talking we are therapists that are following Torah. And but normally, there's a myth out there that therapists usually tell them don't talk to parents. There's no such thing. Where even when a parent thing, I says again, we're not when a client comes in, I tell them it's not about your parents, it's about you. You were hurt. Let's take care of your hurt in order to heal. But when something that bad happens, then and they never came through it, then it's time for you to move on. It's because it's destroying your life. You are meant to live, and you're supposed to move on because you need to take care of your children and your family. And saying what you said before, which I always notice, and that children do see their parents as God in the beginning. And usually their connection to God later in life is going to be mimicking their connection to what they had with their parents. Till we have to explain it to them. This is parents and this is God. There's different things. And then they have the image of God changes because they think it's only because the image of their parents. But then, no, there is different. Yeah, it's very, very powerful. It's important, for people to hear that. And later on in marriage, I also say the same thing. Your marriage usually is also going to mimic the way you're living with your spouse. That's the same connection you're having with God. And we see it on and on. The deeper you go in consciousness, you're going to see that. Till you're married, it's your parents. After you're married, it's your spouse. And that's the way, the way it's meant to be. Yeah.
Yes. I think that that's so important to acknowledge that when a therapist is working with a parent, an adult, a child, and the work that the therapist is doing is not, when a therapist is a from therapist, a therapist who is committed to the Torah world, it's not going to be against Torah. It's going to be to bring out, allow the Torah relationship to come out. And sometimes, as you say, sometimes that involves a period that might be for an entire lifetime where the
Right.
child is not allowed to or should not
Yeah,
maintain
we will never tell them
connection.
to bash to bash or say, be unethical or without any kavod or derecheret, like we say. But it's a matter of, I don't know, move to a different city, move to a different town, again, you're not meant to be destroyed by your parents, especially after you're married. Which sometimes parents have to know that also when they marry off their children, you have to let them go. Just let them go. Don't,
Yes.
but also causes sometimes a lot of problems in a marriage. Parents get involved, let them go. They were old enough to get married, just back off, that type of thing.
Because your child has his own life, her own life, and you have your own life. And it's
Right.
very, very important not to confuse that. Nobody's life is defined by their children. Anyone who does that is making a mistake. I think, and as someone it's very inspiring to me. On one hand, sad. On the other hand, inspiring. When you look at a couple like the last Lubavitcher Rebbe and his wife, they didn't have children, and you know, on the other hand, he has millions of children, but it's like but he doesn't have any of his own. So eh, we just don't know.
No, no.
We don't know why things are as they are, and certainly here, this is one of those areas. No one can say to you, "Oh, this kid came out bad," or "This kid came," because if we knew this, anyone who says to you, "We have the scientific answers," is lying. But we do have goalposts. We do have certain rules of thumb, and we have things that we know. This is how things work in this island. This is what usually works out. And I think that's what we're trying to do now. Now is try to get people to live fuller Torah lives by incorporating principles of Torah into their parenting with their children and with themselves.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so what do you want to leave our audience? Just a good shout out, whatever you want to say, something that stays with them and they have give them strength that you feel.
Parents. So what I would want to say is to every person who is a parent out there, we all have our low moments. We all, at certain times, lose it. There is no one who can say, I am always doing it well. Always know that let's make a commitment. Let's not ever judge anyone else or judge ourselves by how we are in our lowest moment, because we know those lowest moments occur, those bad times occur. But if you fall off a horse, what do you need to do? Get back on the horse. So that's all. We all fall off the horse and we get back on it and we try to ride a little bit better, a little more careful, with a little more expertise. And maybe now we'll go a few more steps till we fall off the next time. So it's not, that they say that the tzaddik doesn't fall, but
Right.
tzaddik always
You
gets
just have
up.
to make sure you pick yourself up quickly enough.
Pick yourself up. And
That's
if
it.
you need help, know where you need to go for getting help. And whenever you feel that you need help, that's why Baruch Hashem, there are a lot of therapists around today that
Right,
can
right,
also help. And it's part of our world as we're coming closer to Mashiach, that we're
right.
seeing more and more people are self-actualizing and becoming better at everything. So if you're already a frum Jew, if you're close to being a frum Jew, if Torah means something to you, take it into all areas of your life. Don't just view it as something which you go to shul, you go to learn, you go to this. No, or everything that you do, make it an expression of Torah. Be
Beautiful,
a Torah
beautiful.
parent.
If people want to contact you, you want to leave information, we are going to put it on the bottom of the video, but is it like through your email?
Yeah, give my email
Email.
adhd.matara@gmail.com. That's the best
Beautiful,
place.
beautiful.
People
Okay,
yeah.
excellent.
We had a nice talk, yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Sasha, thank you so much. And, giving your light to the world, which means a lot. And
Thank you.
yeah, I want to wish you many, many more years and health and keep on doing your work and lighting up the world all over.
Amen. And it's a great, it's exciting for me to meet people like you and the whole community of people who are taking on these roles now of trying to use what's out there to bring people ultimately closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Great.
Okay.